Praise the Lord, my beautiful blessed souls. We are bruised and not broken. I'm back with another word. This is actually going to be Joshua chapter 22, but I'm going to have to label it 21 because I put 22 up and it was really 21, not realizing it. I apologize. And so now I'm going to have to make it look right, I'm going to have to fix that. So now we are here. And we're going to go into a word, and it's going to be whatever is noble. Okay. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Philippians 4:8. Life can be an unpleasant and exquisite experience depending on your attitude towards it. When you are confronted with the cruelty of life, it is also too easy to allow it to affect your nature and character. It requires spiritual sensitivity to consistently appreciate the beauty of life, to appreciate God as the creator of all that is beautiful and noble, and to look around you. You will discover him in unexpected places, in the smile of a friend, the innocence of a child, even the subtle act of love. In numerous ways, you will begin to see the wonder and beauty of life. I bring you humble thanks, O Savior, that thou, the presence of your spirit, I can appreciate the beauty and grandeur of life. Amen. So now we're going to look into this because sometimes we are going through things, and honey, I have been going through some technical difficulties. So my brain kind of shut off from time to time, and it does. I apologize when there's a lot going on. Why? Because that means it's a signal for me that too much is going on between the internet acting up and my phone. And what else? I had a few things going on simultaneously, and my videos wasn't uploading, and it was just chaos and confusion. And so I know for myself, that's when I need to take a break because there's too much going on. My mind is overloaded. It's overthinking. It's over this. It's over that. Stressing out, all these things. And then that's when it becomes a problem. So I have to go sit my little self down. Oh my goodness. I might need to go get me a piece of tissue. My nose just started running. The weather here is back and forth as well. So it's been crazy. So I apologize. And I know that I think it was Joshua 21, 22, whichever one it was, I forget. Wouldn't load. I didn't realize it till way after because I had went to post it and I came home, went to sleep thinking it was posted. It did not. So a lot been going on. So now that's when I realized my internet, phone, and all this other stuff was acting up. So I know it's been a while. Please bear with me. For all my new people, I apologize. But Joshua chapter 22, I'm going to label it 21 like I said, but it's really going to be 22. Why? Because I labeled 21, 22. So I apologize. So Joshua 22 is one of the most emotionally charged. Hold on. Actually, before I do that, let's go back. We're going to read a little bit of it. Okay, so in this chapter, many particular things we have read concerning the two tribes and a half, though nothing separated them from the rest of the tribes except for the River Jordan. Remember, and in this chapter, it is wholly concerning them. Joshua's dismission of the militia of those tribes from the camp of Israel, in which they had severed as auxiliaries during all the wars of Canaan, and they returned thereupon to their own country. So this is when he's starting to send them, back. And the altar that they built on the borders of the Jordan in token of their communion with the land of Israel. Now the offense which the rest of the tribes took, meaning at this altar, and the message sent thereupon, the apology which the two tribes and half made for what they had done. So this is a misunderstanding. The satisfaction which the apology gave to the rest of the tribes, and which estranged, whereas in most differences that can happen, there's a fault on both sides. On this, that's why we need to see was the fault on no side now. For none, and for aught that appears to be blamed, but ought to be praised. So there's situations where, we all play a part. So this is like a misunderstanding, and we're going to get into it. We're going to look at it, and we're going to discuss it, break it all down. Why? Because disagreements, misunderstandings, they happen. This is a part of life. This is what we go through. But how we handle them, how we go through is going to make all the difference in the world. So now we're going to look at this. Now in Joshua chapter 22 is one of the most emotionally charged misunderstandings and lineage revealing chapters in the book. It is not the story about a near civil war or a revelation of, it's about a revelation of miscommunication, assumptions, and fear. Remember, these things happen. Can almost fracture a nation right after God fulfills his promise. So remember, these things can happen. And sometimes it's by design. Be careful. So below, we're going to just talk about the summary, the spiritual lineage, and all of the generational meanings So the core summary of this is after the land was settled, Joshua released the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half tribe of Manasseh. Why? Remember, they to return to their homes of the east of the Jordan. Remember, they had access to the land that was when you first come in. So he told them they could return to their homes and that they had faithfully fought alongside the other tribes for years. So now, it's over with. So now, before leaving, Joshua blesses them and tells them to love the Lord, one, walk in his ways, keep his commandments, cling to him, serve him wholeheartedly. So when they returned to the east, they built a large altar by the Jordan River. Now, the western tribes see this and assume, this is where assumptions come in. People don't know, they assume that it was rebellion, idolatry, and a break from the covenant. So they thought they were going back to worship the old gods. This is what the other tribes thought when they did this. They didn't ask, they didn't know, they just assumed. And this is what happened. So they gathered to go to war against their own brothers. Do you see how people, places, things, or situations, miscommunications can have you warring with each other? Why? Along with the principality powers, Satan don't mind stuff like this happening. He loves this. Why? Because whether he's involved or not, it's just wonderful. It's corruption. So a delegation confronts the eastern tribes who explain, one, that this is not an altar for sacrifices. So this is what they thought. Two, it is a witness memorial. So it wasn't what they thought, it was the opposite. And three, it was meant to prevent future generations from saying you don't belong to the Lord because you live on the other side of the Jordan. So people do things for different reasons. We may not understand what's going on. This is why we need to ask questions. Why? Before we assume. Why? Because as we can see, these type of things can happen when you don't all get together and have a conversation, when you don't ask questions. We talked about communication, we talked about words, we talked about affirmation. We talked about these things, prayer, because they are so important. Why they are important? Because this is how you communicate. This is how you get clarity. You need clear, concise situations. Okay, so the Western tribes accept the explanation. War is avoided. Unity is restored. And the chapter ends with the altar being named Ed, E-D, meaning witness. Joshua chapter 22, spiritual lineage. We are talking about the generational identity, misunderstanding, and motives, and the fight to stay connected. Why? Because this is so important. You will war against your own people, your own kind, and it will be for no reason. And other people, places, and things can have you doing this as well. And this is why we have to be very, very careful of these so-called misunderstandings, these betrayals, these trust issues. Why? Because when people don't get together and have conversations, this can become a situation. Now, a lineage that fight for others before settling itself, or fight each other, I would say, instead of fighting others, or have miscommunications. This is not good. Excuse me. Not know my nose is going to be running like this. I might need to go get me a piece of tissue. I'm trying not to. So the eastern tribes fought for years for land that they would not live in. And when we think about that, this reveals the spiritual pattern. Some lineages are called to secure victory for others first. They carry a mantle of selfless warfare. They build inheritance for others before enjoying their own. This is a servant warrior lineage. Now, when we think about a lot of people and the load and the weights that they carry, you can see this in their own, where, they're pouring. But this may be for a time, and then God may remove it and stop it. Why? Because it's not going to be a forever thing. But at times, because this is what Christ said. He laid his life down for us to enjoy the benefits and not for himself necessarily. So we sit here and we think and we look at these things, and a lot of times this is why you see a lot of people going through these type of things. And we wonder why. People say, we don't know, we don't question, we don't compare. Yes, we do wonder why. Yes, we do compare at times. Yes, we do want to understand why certain things is happening. We're not going to sit here and say that we don't. Why? Because we do. Let the right situation happen and you will be like, why did this happen? So let's get into it. A lineage that must guard against being forgotten. Because they lived across the Jordan, the eastern tribes feared future generations would say, you don't belong, you're not a part of us, you're not legitimate. We see this in our families. This is a lineage wound that many families carry. Yes, we do. Step siblings, marriages fail, all types of situations happen. And when you are forgotten or you feel forgotten or whatever the case may be, these type of things happen. And this is how confusion and misunderstandings and, the bonds are broken. We see these in our own people, places, things, our own families, whether it's our immediates, whether it's our extended, whatever way. We see these things happening. And minor, small, minute things can become big things when unchecked. This is a lineage wound, so it's being overlooked. One is one of the reasons. Being misunderstood is another. Being treated as less than, and being geographically or socially separated. See, these are the reasons, and these carry weight and they carry wounds. Why? Because these are ways to be separated, to be made to feel like you are less than. And a lot of us either have gone through it, or we know people who have experienced it and gone through it themselves. Being overlooked, being misunderstood, being mistreated or treated less than is not something anybody wants. Being geographically or socially separated, that's another thing. Nobody wants that either. So the altar was a protective memorial against generational erasure. Now, this is what they intended it for. And see, this is what, when you're trying to do things that people do not understand or don't care to know and want to misunderstand, whatever it may be, understand you. And this could be the reason why, because remember, the path to hell is paved with good intentions. There's a lot of times we have good intentions towards things, and this is what we're doing, but other people do not know and nor understand or care to know. And they will assume it's for one thing, assume it's for this, that, and it's not. This is why we have to have these conversations. So, a lineage that builds witness, that was what they called it, not idols, because that's what it was. The idol was something that they used to do that God told them not to do. And so this is what they thought they were doing, going back to their old ways. Now, the altar was not for sacrifice, it was for identity. So spiritually, this means that some lineages must build markers to remind future generations of who they are and what they went through. And this is what this is. When we look at our generations, and I say even including mine, especially because a lot of them, they built what they built. Some of them, built good legacies, or it was a mixture, or some of them didn't. And whatever it was, it passed down, and we have to deal with it. And we're the ones stuck with either building, furthering, or whatever, maintaining. So they must create structures of remembrance. They must fight against generational drift, and this is a lineage of preservation. Now, preservation and remembrance comes in all different kinds of situations depending on the person. Now, remembrance is a very important thing because this is how we stay grounded and don't drift, okay? And this is why these markers of these things can help. Why? Because in the times of trouble, you want to remember the good times, the things that did go well. And a lot of times that becomes an issue. You can remember the 99 things that went wrong, and you never remember the one thing that was good, or the very many things that was good compared to the one wrong thing. And this is a problem. This is where a lot of misunderstandings come in, a lot of issues and a lot of problems. But the basic thing is to fight to preserve. This is what this is all about, to continue the bloodline, to continue the generations, to continue to build wealth, inheritance, and blessings, not the curses. And this is what this is about. A lot of times we see the opposite. It is dysfunction and destruction is what we're passing down, and we need to, and instability, all these things. We need to do better with this. Now, a lineage that survives misjudgment. The Western tribes assume the worst, right? They were ready to go to war, and a lot of times we have people assume the worst about us. And this becomes a problem. This reveals even righteousness lineage can be misread. Even covenant people can misinterpret motives. Exactly. Even family members can prepare to fight you based on assumptions. But the Eastern tribes responded with clarity, humility, truth, and covenant loyalty. This is a lineage of peacemakers, peacekeepers who refuse to let misunderstandings destroy unity. Now, in some cases, this will be the situation. This will be the case. In some cases, it's not, because you can't control and force people to do anything. We're just coming out of Mother's Day. I know this word was supposed to be before that. But when we look at families, when we look at what goes on, I was talking about, grieving people who are alive, meaning the relationships, the bonds that you would have had with these people, places, and things, your friends, your this, with people who, were a part of your life or is a part, or, no longer a part of your life, and they're walking, talking, whether it's a spouse, whether it's your family, your friends, a job, whatever, and they're walking, talking in here, but you don't have that bond. That relationship is separate. And that's when you're grieving, the loss of someone who's still here, or people, place, a thing that's still alive instead of is dead. So, but the way it is in, is dead, meaning dead to you guys in the way of relationship. So this is what it is. So we don't want to be destroying the unity. We don't want to be breaking those bonds. We don't want to be doing those things. We want to have a lineage of peacekeepers. We want to have of unity. But it takes effort, it takes work, and it takes us compromising, talking to each other, the communication. We talk about prayer, words, affirmations, communication. What was the other one? And when we talk about these things, this is what this means. Meaning, learn how to communicate well, learn how to speak, learn how to talk, learn how to be back and forth with each other and not really destroy each other, but having conversations. And sometimes it's going to be things you don't like to hear, but it's, it needs to be heard. Sometimes you're in the wrong with things. Sometimes you're in the right. Everyone plays their part in these situations. Compromise can be a very wonderful thing when it comes to mending. Okay. Having mediators is a wonderful thing to come in, intercede and being in the gap, just like Christ did with us, with God. So, and then we can be that even in our own lives, within our own selves. So, lineage that values unity enough to confront it and explain it. Why? Because this is what maturity is all about. Both sides will show maturity. The Western tribes confront instead of gossiping. They ask. The Eastern tribes explain instead of reacting defensively. These are things that we have to pay attention to, because a lot of times it could go either way with this on both sides. It could be gossiping instead of confronting, meaning talking to everybody else about it instead of talking to the person. It could also be the assumption. It could be reacting defensively instead of asking questions, But this is a lineage of courageous communication. This is what they did, and this is what we have to look at so that we wouldn't be so dysfunctional, because a lot of us, we have issues. We suffer with stuff like this, and this is why. There's a lot of triggers and a lot of other stuff that goes along with that, but we have to pay attention, be mindful of it, because guess what? It is a part of us. These are the habits, the thoughts, the habits, the patterns that become cycles. This is what this is. Now, generational themes. Miscommunication can almost destroy what God just built. This is with anything. Right after the promised land is secured, the enemy tries to sow what? Suspicion, division, false narratives. Why? This is how generational fractures begin. This is why when it comes to dealing with certain situations, we have to be very, very careful, because the enemy will use any and everybody to sow that small seed, and the fractures start, the little cracks that will spread and become big ones. So you take one little thing that was gossip about, or suspicion, or that was a questionable matter or a misunderstanding, and make it something big. And this is where honey, I'm dealing with a lot of this right now. Stuff gets blown out of proportion, shouldn't have been, and guess what? It gets to be a whole situation that it shouldn't have never had to be. And what did it do? In the end, destroy unity. Identity must be intentionally preserved. The altar was witnessed to prevent future identity loss. And this is a good thing. And honestly, to be honest with you, also, when people know who you are and they act certain ways, it says a lot about, them as a person, as to they've been around you enough to know you, and they still, act and treat and do certain things knowing the truth about you, but still want to accept the lie, then that becomes a problem. Okay, then that means that there's just something with them. But you can't change people. Okay, so you have to change yourself and your environment and let them say, think, and do whatever that they want. And they know the truth, whether they want to or not, but it's up to them. And a lot of people feel like their own truth is the truth. There's only one truth, and there's a truth and a lie. Unity requires confrontation, not avoidance. And this is another thing. A lot of times we avoidance breeds division. Conversation restores covenant, of course, but sometimes that can work or can happen, and sometimes it cannot. You cannot force people to believe or like and hear you out. You can speak it, if they want to be bothered, and then if not, then you just got to leave it alone, because you cannot force them to do it. You cannot force them to like you, love you, to conversate with you, to try to work it out. You cannot. Everyone is a participant. They are all playing roles, and I tell people all the time when it comes to situations, like, everyone has a role to play in this situation. No one's innocent. Everyone has a role to play, and they need to own whatever part that they played in it, whether it was a good one or a bad one. Now, every altar is rebellion. Some are remembrances. This is discernment, and it is required. So some things that folks remember, they weren't remembered to be a bad thing. It was remembered to be a good thing. And this is what this is all about, because they're thinking the altar was erected so it could be devil worship. Again, idolatry, when it was not. And this is why clarity and conversation, ask questions before you just go jumping in thinking you know so much about whatever the situation is. This is what this is about. So now, we are part of a lineage that fights for others before ourselves. When we work in justice, healing, and community transformation mirrors the Eastern tribes. We want to secure freedom for others and build systems that others will live in. Of course, you want to fight battles that others will benefit from. This is priestly warrior work. This is what this is about. A lot of times the battles and stuff we going through in our life is for other people so that we can help other people get through it when they're going through it. We understand what it means to be across the Jordan. People may misunderstand our motives, misread our calling, question our legitimacy, assume rebellion where there is obedience. And people will say, you're this, you're that, and they assume to know you, assume to have you all figured out. You may be some of the things, you may not be none of them. You may, it may be the total opposite. But at the end of the day, you know who you are and you know whose you are. So this is what you have to do. You are building witness altars for future generations. The frameworks, teachings, and justice that we're doing, memorials, identity markers, and lineage protectors, we're going to pay attention to these. We're ensuring future generations can say we belong to God, we have a place, we have a story. And this is what this is about. We carry a ministry of reconciliation. We want to reconcile. We want to confront without attacking. We want to explain without shrinking. We want to restore unity without losing truth. And this is rare spiritual maturity. These things are not necessarily that easy, depending on, because, when you're dealing with stuff, emotions run high. Things can get hot-headed real quick. This is where sometimes you need to take a step back. Sometimes you don't need to have the conversation, or you need to wait to have the conversation till the right time. This is where knowing and having that wisdom is, because if people are not healed, they may not accept or respect or take it well. And that's on both ends. And you both have to be willing to make it work and put the work in order for it to work. Why? Because you can't keep doing the same behaviors, the same things that's going to trigger each other and have each other right back where you started. So there is borders, there's lines. I talked about it in the last one that should not be crossed on both ends. Folks should not cross over this end, cross over that end when it comes to certain people, places, things, certain conversations, certain things you do, whatever. Why? Because if you're going to respect the person, you're going to apologize, respect their boundaries. We're not going to make this a manipulative situation. We're going to do it and really mean it and be done with it. And that's what, is really like the name of the game here. Okay. So we want to look at how to transform this and to make it something worth our while, because, digging, honey. These things are real life things. These are real life situations. It doesn't matter where it is or what it is or what's going on. We can see ourselves in all. So now we're going to look at what the chapter means as far as the transformation. So we could do Joshua chapter 22 is about a faithful lineage returning home. It is a misunderstanding that almost caused a civil war amongst themselves, to fight amongst themselves. A memorial built to protect future identities. Unity restored through courageous communication. It's a chapter about identity. It's about misunderstanding and generational protection. So spiritual posture, Joshua 22 calls us into one, clarity, humility, identity protection, courageous conversation, unity without compromise, and remembrance. This is a priestly warrior maturity. This is what we talked about. Lineage meaning Joshua 22 reveals a lineage that fights for others before itself, fears being forgotten and or erased. We do not want that. Builds memorials to preserve identity and easily misunderstood. Is easily misunderstood, but must explain itself to avoid generational fracture, and values unity enough to confront and communicate. This is a bridge builder lineage. Now, a lot of times people don't mind doing those things, but they want to be accepted. They want it to be reciprocal, and that, sometimes it's issues if it's not reciprocal. If you're going to do all the giving and you're wanting to fix it, you cannot fix these things by yourself. People, places, things, these issues. But you have to be willing to do it, because one person cannot carry the whole. It's not. It takes the effort of both parties in order to fix it. You both broke it. You both got to fix it. Work together to fix it. Emotional landscape. This chapter teaches that fear of rejecting, fear of being misunderstood, fear of losing connection, fear of generational erasure, and longing for belonging, desire for unity. It validates the emotional complexity of being across the Jordan, meaning on the other side. Remember, they were away from the rest of them. Now, it justifies it because of that, but it doesn't give them, still a pass on how they're supposed to act and treat and be with each other. Generational patterns exposed. Joshua 22 exposes assumptions, right? A lot of people have a lot of assumptions about a lot of things. They never had a conversation with you about they think and they assume instead of asking, so know and understand. Miscommunication, this is where that comes in it. A lot of it is miscommunication or just flat out lies. Then it is inherited suspicions. Why? Because we get suspicious about certain things. We don't have necessarily any facts, but we kind of, and we need to follow them up to make sure. Then we have tribal division, dividing of your own family, identity, insecurity, not knowing who you are, whose you are, how to move, and a lot of times we go through that as well. Because growing up, a lot of times we're not affirmed. A lot of times the communication is weird, whack, off. Our prayer life, our connection to God can be off, whatever it is. And we can be off, fear-based narratives, where we're always in fear, we're always in survival mode. These things are not good. We're not supposed to be inheriting and continuously to pass these things down. Someone needs to heal it. Someone needs to stop and go through what it needs to take to heal these generations. If not, we're going to continue to see these patterns, but we don't want that. So we need to be focusing on that. Generational blessings activated. This chapter activates reconciliation, clarity, identity protection, unity, generational continuity, and covenant loyalty. So these are the things: reconciliation, clarity, identity protection, unity, because knowing who you are, because people could say you this and you're that, and you're not. Unity, generational continuity, and covenant loyalty. Joshua chapter 22, lineage, where have I been misunderstood? These are questions we can ask. What motives of mine have been misread? What assumed rebellion when I was actually obeying God? Exactly. How did that shape my lineage story? Because people want to see the outside, what they want to see. Where have I been across the joint, meaning physically distant, emotionally distant, socially distant, economically distant, spiritually distant? And it could be from God, it could be from us, ourselves, it could be from our family, our friends, it could be whatever way. Then it says, what witness altars do I need to build? What memorials preserve my identity? What practices protect my lineage from erasure? And what structures ensure future generations know that they belong? So these are things we need to ask ourselves so we can kind of get a gauge and look into our lives and figure out what questions we could come up with to make things better moving forward. Where do I need courageous conversation? Who do I need to clarify things with? What assumptions need to be corrected and what unity needs to be restored? These are questions that are very important. We need to figure those out and start doing the work. What fears drive my reactions? Fear of being forgotten, fear of being excluded, fear of being misunderstood, fear of losing connection. So we can name those so we can see. Now we're going to have a declaration. We're going to talk about speaking these things out loud because you declare, you decree. So speak things out loud. Identity, I'm part of a lineage that belongs. My identity is secure in God, not in others' assumptions. I am not forgotten, overlooked, or erased. When it comes to your calling, I fight for others before myself, and God honors that. I am placed strategically, not accidentally. I am a bride between tribe systems, and generations. Unity, I carry the ministry of reconciliation. I confront with courage and clarity. I restore with unity being losing. I restore unity without losing truth. Sorry about that. Very important. That's very important. Protection, I build memorials that preserve identity. My lineage would not be erased or disconnected. My future generations will know who they are. Peace, I am misunderstood but not misaligned. I am misread but not misplaced. I am a peacemaker with authority. Okay. Okay, we could look at the miscommunication healing framework. Identity, misread motive. What did they think you were doing and what were you actually doing? So what's the difference? Be identity, the fear of beneath the reaction. Wow. I guess I could take that, yeah. See clarity without defending. The Eastern tribes don't attack back, they explain. Restored covenant, not ego. The goal is unity, not victory. So now we're talking about building a witness, create something that prevents future misunderstandings. 4 is boundaries, a boundary, and then it's a practice, a conversation, a memorial, and a shared agreement. So this is how you build a witness. Witness alter generational identity. The guide that helps you build its identity markers for your lineage. What must my lineage never forget? List truths, values, testimonies, deliverance, and promises. What threatens our identity? Distance, silence, assumptions, trauma, and generational drift. What memorials must I build? Meaning rituals, stories, teachings, declarations, community practices. And what does my altar witness do? We belong, we are connected, we are covenant people, we are not forgotten, we are part of the story. Okay, let me see, because I'm getting... Let me see. What do future generations need to hear from me? What the messages that my altars carry is healing, is restoration, is transformation. These are the things that I want to see, that I want people to be doing, having in their life, looking at things and just kind of looking at them. Iterated transformation. Joshua, phase 1, faithful service. You fight for others first. Phase 2, return and blessing. You are released into your own inheritance with honor after you help others. Phase 3, misunderstanding. Your motives are misread. Phase 4, confrontation. Conflict rises, but you choose clarity over defensiveness. Phase 5, explanation. You articulate your heart and your identity. In phase 6, witness building. You create structures that protect your lineage. And then phase 7, unity is restored. Peace returns. Covenant is strength. Generations are secure. So I'm trying not to make these... I'm trying not to make these videos so long, but we get the gist of it, of how we can be misunderstood, how things need to be explained, how we need witnesses or ones who will stand in the gap, intercede, and mediate, how we need and want to be restoring, or sometimes that could be healing, deliverance, and restoration may be in a different light. You may do that from a distance. It may not be reconciling, but it may be forgiveness, but not reconciliation. So it just depends on what's going on. And it's up to the, people, places, and things that are involved, because everyone has their own choice and decisions to make in these situations, whether they want to continue on, with themselves or others or not. And they have every right to feel and do whatever it is they want, because God gives us all free will. So when we look at these things and we see it just talks about a lot, and we see it in our everyday lives, whether at work, at home, with our children, with our spouses, whatever. And I kept talking about trust and all these type of things. And this is where trusting people come in. This is where forgiving people come in. This is where all of this is going to come in. And it's going to force you to use your triggers. It's going to force you to, not stay secluded, force you to interact and do other things which you're supposed to do anyway. We were talking about that in the book. We were talking about those type of things. Why being in isolation? No one's supposed to be in isolation forever. You're supposed to be, having a life. Yes, we're supposed to live here for the Lord, but we're supposed to also have a life here, in the Lord, through the Lord, being here. So when we look at these things, this is what this is all about, trying to figure out how to live here and to learn and to walk with the Lord right here on earth as it's supposed to be in heaven, the way it is in heaven. But it's supposed to be right here, and we're supposed to be able to live it and walk it right here. So I hope that this word was a blessing to you. I hope it make you sit down and think about things. When it comes to reconciliation, when it comes to apologizing, when it comes to just accepting, your role, accepting some good, some bad, accepting, confronting it, being acknowledging of it, and really repenting and move forward, because that's all we can do. We can't stay stuck and, stay in the past forever. It does come around and makes us feel some kind of way, and time to time it bothers us. And this is a part of the healing journey, and this is what we're doing. We're trying to heal. We're trying not to continue passing these curses on, these generational stuff. We want to be healed, delivered, and whole. And each generation is responsible for its own, honestly. And whatever doesn't get done, get passed down, good and bad. So we want to be mindful of that. So we not continuing to pass down the same old stuff, like the poverty, the this, the that. And don't get me wrong, there's other factors that play, roles in this as well. And I do want to eventually get into that, because I wanted to look into that. I've been looking into some things, and I wanted to bring that forward, because we can discuss the warfare and some of the things that do come about. And we're going to discuss some of these, these actual gods and goddesses that they worship, and what they did and what they were for, and all these different things. But we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. That would be in Judges. So we're going to look up some stuff and find out and see symbols and, faces and different things of these so-called gods that God told them not to worship, which it can be mammon, which is money, all these different things. We're going to look into it. Not right now. We're going to get into it where I'm doing this is Joshua chapter 22, but I'm going to label it 21, like I said, because I did 21 and labeled it 22. So, but they're right behind each other, and it was a mistake with the viewing situation. So I apologize, and we're going to get it together. And then I'm going to do the last one, which is chapter 24, Joshua chapter 24. And we're going to wrap up Joshua, and we're going to start going into Judges, so we can see what is going on there, how they backslid, how they fell, and what was the repercussions of what's going on. So like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel. I hope this word was a blessing to you. I do also have my link in the bio, my Cash App link. If you'd like to be a blessing to me and my family, if not, God is still my provider. He always does. He always has. And we're going to think about these things, because as Mother's Day was here. You got family. You got all these things. And we got to figure out what it is we're doing. What it is we're doing. Why we're doing it. These are questions we need to be asking ourselves. Just sitting around isolated is not going to help the situation. So, bruised and not broken. Like I said, I hope that this word was a blessing to you guys. Like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel. All my newcomers, I thank you. I don't know how many videos you can go back and start looking. I started with my testimony up until I started going into more questions, delving in, trying to figure out what's going on. And a lot of the stuff that we talk about here is stuff that, I want to get Bible-based. I want to be, different. Whatever it is that we're learning is learning, because I'm learning it myself as I'm walking, and we're just teaching and showing and growing each other, getting strength to spread the love, to stand with one another in trials and tribulations, pray, whatever it is, for one another, so that we can have that support. And some people don't have any, and it's sad, because when that happens, people take advantage, especially, they say never tell a man certain things. Why? Because certain people, places, and things will take advantage. If you are having a hard time, let's say when they feel like no one loves you, they feel like they can do whatever they want, treat you however they want. And this is a sad fact that we don't want to do that. So we want to be in healthy, whole, loving, kind, situations, and not the way we were. So I'm going to let this word go, because we're almost at 40 minutes, and they're telling me I ain't going too long with the video. So I'm trying to cut them and make them a little shorter, even though I have so much information to get into it. I want to make sure I get all of the information that I need to get into it out, and then I close it out. But anyway, I thank you so much. We are bruised and not broken. For the newcomers, I ask you to stick in there, hang in there with me. Look at the old stuff. I thank you for joining. For the old ones, rock with your girl, rock with your girl, stay in there with your girl. Love you to pieces, and be blessed in Jesus' name. Amen.